Welcome to the Amna and Michelle podcast review of recent capstones. Today, we're going to dive into Kanchi Desai's capstone entitled Adaptive Leadership Competencies, Amplifying Impact in Sustainable Business Model Innovation. So Amna, tell me, what did you think of this one?
It was very interesting, very structured. When it's a properly, um, I want to say structured capstone. So it was very academic. It followed the traditional structure with the intro, lit review, followed by the methodology, findings, and then discussions, and finally the recommendations.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I know when we first talked about it, our thought was, oh, this is really boring.
Yes.
And that's the tension, right? With writing an academic paper is you want to be able to draw your readers in. It's not a New Yorker article like we talked about in class last week. It is an academic structure. And so the fact that in hindsight, we were able, and we both came to this on our own, that we both were able to look back and say, wow, she really structured a lot of information, brought it together, disparate sources, and then was able to succinctly identify themes and structures and tensions was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and it was like a good example of how a good academic paper would look like.
Yeah.
It was very organized, and the way that it was just based on like 12 interviews and of course the literature, but I really appreciate you know the whole discussion and the findings, also the methodology. It is much more complicated than, you know, we would first
Right.
think
Yes.
it is. Like, okay, we thought like it was not, it was a hard read at first, but now I really appreciate, all the findings and the conclusions and,
Yeah.
how the topic came to life, basically.
Indeed. And I'm really hoping that someone gives me that patience when I'm with my capstone, when they're reading it, to give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm going to get somewhere. And Kanchi really does. Um, just to give an overview, an intro of the capstone for our listeners, she identifies a gap through highlighting the key competencies of adaptive leaders. Those are ability to foster an environment for open communication and diverse ideas, willingness to experiment and take risks, and the capacity to engage with stakeholders. And her stance is that adaptive leadership competencies are critical to managing tensions in sustainable business model innovations, and that those will create more sustainable, resilient business models. So again, first, the way that she structured it was pretty amazing. But tell me about the lit review.
So, going back to this structure, what I appreciate, the literature review was grouped by topic. So she had like all the literature that talks about the sustainable business model in one paragraph, and then followed by other topics. So it kind of connects with the research question. When you're reading the literature review, it actually makes sense. And I think that's a very it's a stronger way to write a literature review, for it to make sense, and you can understand like where each discussion or argument comes from relating to that specific idea or the topic.
Right. Yeah, you had mentioned that you've seen it done on a timeline basis, which for this, that wouldn't make any sense, right?
No. Yeah, and also, so it was thematic analysis and codes. So it was mostly literature on sustainable business models, leadership, and complexity leadership theory. So it was very organized, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's something like I would want to do in my capstone. So it's a good example of how to write a literature review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully our advisors will guide us in that. Another interesting thing that Amna and I found when reading through the findings and discussion is that Kanchi included her interview questions,
Mhm.
and that we were really struck by, she did not give guidance on how to answer them. She didn't give any definitions on even what sustainability was. And that was one of my first questions when we first met, was she doesn't even define sustainability. How is this a good capstone? But when you really think about it, she wanted the leaders to come up with their own idea of what sustainability is and how it impacts their own business and their thoughts and their leadership. So she did that. And in her interview questions, she really kept it to tell me what you think,
Mhm.
which was brilliant. And then her ability to, from that, she used a Miro board, which was really interesting,
Yeah.
to gather those disparate thoughts and then create a chart of what those findings meant. So she had come up with 3 different tensions, and those tensions were organizing, learning, and belonging. And then within organizing, there were a few adaptive leader competencies such as ethics and values, managing through systems, and managing diversity. In learning, it was integrity and trust, priority setting, and managing through systems. There was some overlap there too, which makes sense. Belonging was the third tension, and there were adaptive leadership competencies within that were understanding others, ethics and values again, priority setting again, managing diversity and perspective. So again, we just were really struck by her ability to gather all this disparate information, keep herself out of it, and then come up with all of these tensions and then the competencies mapped to them. So in coaching, there are 4 provinces of coaching. One of them is the coaching self. And I saw it mirrored in the way that Kanchi kept in check her feelings as they were coming up in the interview process, her thoughts, her ideas, that she really took great strides to keep herself out of it and managed what was coming up within her. And that is a key concept within the coaching self, is managing those emotions that are coming up within you. So the ability to do that was really, I thought, impressive. And we talked about that even her management of the interview, when, things can run together, interviewee to interviewee, she made sure that she did not, or she tried to not allow a previous interview experience to impact that present one, even when the conversation was very, very similar.
Yes. I appreciate that. You know, as you said, this kind of like legitimizes the research, because she did not influence the questions in any way. They were very open-ended, and so it kind of all adds up together to her findings.
Yeah.
And all like it's true, because she did not talk about her previous interviews with the other leaders, and the questions were very skillful too.
Mhm.
They were really good questions, and yeah, that was very good.
Yeah. So all in all, I think that the structure, the lit review, the way that Kanchi was able to pull together this disparate amount of information from leaders and find these key themes was pretty well done. And I just want to talk about the four critical takeaways of the research that Kanchi found. And that's that continuous learning and the ability to unlearn, constantly seeking new opportunities to acquire new knowledge, a strong emphasis on active learning, and recognizing that creating a shared space where all voices are heard is crucial for cultivating adaptive environments.
Yeah. And I think like I just wanted to add to that. The whole idea behind it is that leaders who adopt adaptive competencies can build more resilient, innovative, and sustainable organizations. And so in the interviews also, it wasn't intentional that the leaders are in the food industry, but that was kind of like it was added to the capstone as like specifically in the food industry.
yeah.
So that was interesting too. It kind of like her research kind of led her into her topic.
That's a great way to put it, Amna, really.
Yeah.
Yes. And isn't that kind of really what
Yeah.
Nancy's trying to get us to do?
It's comforting.
It is comforting. It really is comforting. You mentioned, that it was just kind of all the sustainability with the food services industry. And one of the issues that she saw for the necessity for this is us living in a post-COVID world.
Yeah.
Which we all remember what happened during COVID to the food industry and how many restaurants went out of business.
Yeah. And she specifies that it's like they have that urgency in that industry, which was also mentioned in her interviews by different leaders in that industry. So that was like one takeaway that was like, discussed across these interviews.
Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
More than 7 minutes.
I think so. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.